Hi guys, this is your reading video for Tuesday, September 17th. So today you're going to get a model literary essay. This literary essay is about William Carlos Williams, and I'm going to go ahead and read that to you. On the back of this page, you also have a painted essay template. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at how an essay, how to write a strong essay, because we're going to be writing our own paper or our own essay about what inspires poets to write poetry. So on your poet that you're researching, you started that last Friday. So this is about William Carlos Williams, and I'm going to go ahead and read this to you, and I want you to follow along with me. William Carlos Williams was an award-winning poet who wrote 48 books of poetry and won prizes, including the National Book Award and the Pulitzer Prize. He was also named consultant in poetry to the Library of National Congress. This famous poet found the inspiration for his poems in an unusual place. William Carlos Williams was inspired by everyday objects and the lives of common people. And you can see this in his poetry. William Carlos Williams wrote about things he knew. In A River of Words, a biography of Williams, Jim Bryant explains how at first Willie was inspired to write poetry by the sounds and rhythms and the work of famous English poets, read to him by his teacher, Mr. Abbott. When he realized that he hadn't seen a lot of the things that he was writing about, he decided to write about ordinary things and people that he could see around him instead. He made notes about things he had heard, seen, and done, such as wheelbarrows and playing with toys, and wrote poems about them. He drew his inspiration from common objects and familiar people. William Carlos Williams' poems show us the beauty and importance of the people and objects in our everyday lives. For example, in The Red Wheelbarrow, Williams describes a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater and how it is next to white chickens. This short poem helps us understand how beautiful and important the common wheelbarrow is. Another example is in the poem, This Is Just to Say, where Williams describes some plums that he ate. In the poem, he says, I've eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and explains how they tasted delicious, sweet, and cold. Williams was also inspired by the lives of common people in the poem Children's Games Too. He describes little girls playing with pinwheels, hoops, and constructions made of bricks. William Carlos Williams' poems help the reader appreciate the beautiful common things like wheelbarrows, plums, and the little girls playing can be. William Carlos Williams was inspired to write poetry about everyday people and things, and his work also inspired others to write poetry. My favorite poem by William Carlos Williams is The Wood Thrush, because just like him, I like to watch birds in my garden. In the book Love That Dog by Shannon Creech, Jack writes his first poem about a blue car after reading The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. So, I want to go back to, I want to look at this essay. So, getting our mind out of poetry, we're still working with poetry, but a paragraph in poetry is called a stanza. These are called paragraphs, so each section is called a paragraph. There are 4 paragraphs in this paper, and my goal for you by the end of 4th grade is to write a 5-paragraph paper. 3 body paragraphs, an introduction paragraph, and a concluding paragraph. You're going to be writing an introductory paragraph starting tomorrow. So that is the first paragraph that is in an essay. And in 5th grade, you'll be absolutely required to write 5 paragraphs essays. It is what is expected of you. So I want you to look at this painted essay template on the back of your page. Your substitute teacher should have passed out a blue, a green, a yellow, and a red colored pencil to you as well. There's probably not enough for everybody, so please just be kind and share with one another. On the painted essay, I'm going to say that I want to use red for my introduction. And because my introduction is a reflection, my conclusion is a reflection of my introduction, I'm sorry, because we restate a lot of what we've said in the introduction. We put that in our conclusion. I want to go ahead and put red down for my conclusion as well. For point 1, I want to put blue here. And if you look down here, proof paragraph 1, that is also blue. So proof paragraph 1, blue. Point 2, I want to make yellow. And so proof paragraph 2 will also be yellow. And then the transition between the two paragraphs is green. Transition here is green. So I've labeled it on another piece of paper in color. You might want to do that so you have that visual. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through each part of this essay and analyze it, dig deep into it, close read it, and then diagram it. So first we're going to start with the introduction, so you need a red pencil. Like I said, if there's not enough, share, pause this if you don't have one right now, and then go back. But some of you have your own colored pencils, so please make sure you're sharing or using your own. And be kind to one another. So, introduction. It catches the reader's attention, and it gives some background information. This is called an introduction paragraph. We're not going to underline the whole paragraph. We want to underline what catches the reader's attention and give some background information. So I'm going to go ahead and reread this introduction paragraph to you. William Carlos Williams was an award-winning poet who wrote 48 books of poetry and won prizes, including the National Book Award and the Pulitzer Prize. He was also named consultant in poetry to the Library of National Congress. This famous poet found the inspiration for his poems in an unusual place. William Carlos Williams was inspired by everyday objects and the lives of common people, and you can see this in his poetry. So I would say that first sentence it catches us, and it gives us background information. So I underlined that first sentence because when we learned about William Carlos Williams last week in the biography, we found out that he was a doctor who was working day and night, and he was able to write 48 books and have them published and win these amazing awards. So that catches my attention as a person. Point 2, our focus statement. Remember, your focus statement is the first sentence that grabs somebody from that paragraph. So generally, it's going to be your first sentence and the next paragraph. William Carlos Williams wrote about things he knew. That focus sentence, since we've already read that paragraph, this whole essay, we know that focus sentence goes through, and he talks about writing about things he was familiar with the whole entire essay. And then point 2, so we did that for point 1, our focus. Point 2 is going to be down in this next paragraph, the third paragraph. William Carlos Williams' poems show us the beauty and importance and people and objects in our everyday lives. Underline that first sentence. That's your focus, or you can color it, however you want to do it, as long as you can still read the words. That first sentence is yellow in the third paragraph. Now I want to go back up and find our proof in the first paragraph. William Carlos Williams wrote about the things he knew. Reread that to yourself. Here I see this. He wrote about ordinary things and people that he could see around him instead. He made notes about things he had heard, seen, or done, such as wheelbarrows, toys, and wrote poems about them. That, I would say, is our proof. That tells us exactly what he wrote about and why he wrote about it. I want you to go find the proof down here in this third paragraph and underline that in yellow. So find your proof in your third paragraph. That's your evidence. Now, we transition between one paragraph to the next. Our transition is generally at the end. He drew his inspiration from common objects and familiar people. Here, in this next sentence, it talks about objects and people again. So we're going to underline that last sentence in green. That is our transition. And then down here in our last paragraph, our conclusion. We want to find what in the introduction concludes this, what reflects it. So William Carlos Williams was inspired to write poetry about everyday people, things, and his work. And his work has also inspired others to write poetry. My favorite poem of William Carlos Williams is The Wood Thrush because I, like him, I like to watch my birds in my garden. In the book Love That Dog by Sharon Creech, Jack writes his first poem about a blue car after reading The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. So that first sentence, it concludes everything that we just underlined. It includes it concludes that whole entire essay. It once again summarizes that he wrote about everyday objects and common people. So that concluding paragraph should wrap up everything you've written. It should reflect everything you've written. So this is your reading video for today. After this, you make sure that you've gotten all your facts and evidence written down. After this, you're going to go into your Google Classroom. You will have, you'll see something in there called Lesson 9 Poem Share Out or Poem Share. During your independent reading, you've been reading poems. I want you to, on this doc, write your favorite poem, explain why it's your favorite, tell me the book that it comes from. I think you guys are reading some great poetry, and some of you are really, really loving it. So share that out and type. Make sure you put your name on it. Then you have another doc that is called Lesson 9 Writing. And the instructions for that, it says to Google and read about another famous poet from Love That Dog. So somebody that you're not reading about from Friday and not William Carlos Williams. I want you to describe what inspired them to write poetry. So your options are Robert Frost, William Blake, Valerie Worth, Arnold Adolph, or Walter Dean Myers. Go ahead and write that out on this Google Doc. Put your name next to it. Everybody else is going to be writing on there, so it might be bumping up and down or jumping up and down, but make sure that you are writing your information on there. And that will take you to the end of the reading. Make sure you're reading your independent poetry book and writing in your reading journal. If you get a chance and you want to try your hand at writing some poetry, maybe a shape poem or short little tiny poems, go ahead and write that in your yellow poetry journal. This is the end of reading on Tuesday.